We turn to you now to make a new start. More than just tears, we give you our hearts. Let the people cry and call, that we might stand and
Everyone, so glad we could be together today. My throat's a little froggy for some reason. It's got to be the weather, which you can't trust the weather right now, right? This is quite a week from temperatures to storms. And I looked on the weather, I think a little farther north, a few hours, Omaha got snow. South of us, we got tornadoes. And so then what happens after all that? Your voice sounds like this. We can get caught between all this. But anyway, thank the Lord that we didn't get any bad storms here, that I'm aware of. And so it's a great day, though. I walked through the cool air. Actually, the cool air kind of felt good this morning. And I hope you're having a good morning. And we're going to talk about some really important things today that reflect on who we are as people and what's going on in our country a little bit. And the need for us to be the people of God and to rise up as the people of God at least in our personal walk and and have personal prayer time about our nation and what's going on around us. So anyway, I guess I could get right in this today and talk to you because if you see the title, it's how to upset God? Yeah, how to upset God. And the cool thing about that, saying that, is most people don't know God ever could get upset. They let him, in their theology, they let God get upset at the end of the days, the end of the age, when, they judge people, the righteous, and people go to heaven, go to hell, and all that kind of stuff. And of course, at the end of that, actually, the end of the age, heaven and earth are going to come together. So if he judges you at the end of the age and you're alive and they send you to heaven, or if you happen to die a few days before Jesus returns, then you go to heaven, you're going to turn around and come right back, because heaven and earth are going to come together and the kingdom of God is going to be established on the earth. Okay, so anyway, a lot of people don't know, though, that God can get upset now. Now, there's a lot of things God overlooks, right? It's not like he's always angry. He's not the angry God that a lot of people have made him. But the Bible teaches us he is a jealous God, jealous for his own people. And, jealousy wants attention. Jealousy wants focus, and we don't get that. You can get jealous of what are the other things you're focusing on. Okay, so anyway, he's got a great system, right? God's got a great system. He understands the fall. All have fallen short of the glory of God through sin. He understands that. He's offered forgiveness. He has redemption. He sent the Holy Spirit. He gives us eternal life. I mean, it's pretty well covered to keep God, if we just flow into that, to keep God from getting upset with anybody. But unfortunately, there is one thing that God just really can't take. He really gets upset at it, and my concern is that our nation is beginning to go that direction now. So there is one thing, even though we as people, we can cook up a lot of things and think, oh, God's really upset with me. God's really mad at me. God's going to judge me. God's going to let his bad dogs out in my yard, so they bite me when I come home or whatever, and that's not the way to think. And we've done a good job probably in Christianity over the last 25, 30 years or more, 50 years, 40 years, of making God a better guy, okay? Because before that, if you were, in some evangelicals and some Pentecostal circles, God was always angry and always judged, and you're always in trouble, and you're never good enough. Well, we've gotten over that a little bit. We may have swung too far, but we've got over that a little bit. But anyway, God has put up with a lot. But there's one thing that he establishes that will get him upset, really upset. And there's no cure for it on his end. You see, if you sin and you confess your sins, then Jesus is righteous. He's good. He's faithful. He then takes action, right? Well, in this one thing, the action God takes is it's not like I'm just going to let it go. There's got to be action on our part to get it. So anyway, there's one thing that God through history just will not tolerate, and we need to know what it is. And it affects our country, and it affects us. And that is, he says what? You will have no other gods before me. No other gods. All right? Now, I used to, growing up, I'd hear about that, and then you'd hear, you study other religions or something in school, and, find out that one country's got, what do they got? They make cows and oxen and gods, right? And then through the centuries they've had fish. There's the fish god, and all kinds of things, trees, and nature, and all kinds of gods. Well, I would look at my life and our country, and I think, well, I don't know too many people that worship fish or birds or even statues, but I got into big trouble one time. We were in Atlanta, and I think the tourist area, because I think the Pepsi place is it Coke or Pepsi? Coke. Coke is in Atlanta, I think. Yeah. The big Coke place is in Atlanta, and they got the zoo, and they had an aquarium, and we went to all that stuff with relatives and things down there. And then we decided to go out to eat, and there was a just regular, looked like Chinese restaurant. It's close. Let's eat some Chinese food. Okay, I got into big trouble because when we walked in, there was bigger than life-size Buddha. Okay, I mean a big Buddha, like this big Buddha, and Buddha kind of sits. He's kind of always in a lower position, So he had a great-looking lap, right? So I thought this will be funny. I'm going to sit in the lap of Buddha. This big statue as you come in, and I'm going to sit in the lap of Buddha and have somebody take my picture. Say, look, even Buddha likes me, and so I did. And I don't know what it was, but the people that worked there didn't like that. I think that was offensive to them, and so the rest of my family's all, and especially my grandkids, that's offensive. You offended them, and I said, it's not offensive to me. And it's not offensive to God. Just a statue, right? So we do have some things around, but in my life and my neighborhood and my friends, I didn't know anybody that, worshiped statues or anything like that, strange things, birds or whatever. And so whenever I would see that, have no other gods, I would think, okay, we're doing pretty good because we don't do that kind of stuff. Hi, Darren. And we don't do that kind of stuff. Well, as time progressed, we got into two bad areas. This is not my talk today, but I'll just mention it. Then when humanism and psychoanalysis and Freud and all those came into the sermons and into church, where like I've said before, it's like a giant therapy session. We're all getting therapy out of the sermon. We're not getting transformed, but we're learning to cope, right, and feel better about stuff. And so that came in. So leaning a little bit like we're starting to be our own gods, right? We're starting to be our own gods, and being independent of Him, even though we still go to church or maybe say I believe in God. So that's another subject, and that's not what I want. Where I want to go. So you'll say have no other gods before me. Now, we in America here, we haven't always been a righteous nation. You can study even the founding fathers had some weird stuff, right? And they get out and duel and shoot somebody and then write the Constitution, whatever. But so we haven't always been a righteous nation in all that we've done and how we've always handled things. But in this nation, we've never had other gods on a scale like I said, maybe there's a Buddha in a restaurant or something, but those people weren't forcing Buddha, and you didn't see Buddha in our culture, a Buddha, or I shouldn't pick on Buddha, but not that he hears me, but I shouldn't pick on that religion. It's just any of them. They just weren't a force. And they pretty well left everybody alone, and the United States pretty much stayed in one area. In God we trust. We all believed, in the one God, and they tried to make laws and you know base them on the founding fathers, who were basing it on basic Christian principles. And there's a lot of documents you can read about that. But so we haven't always been a righteous nation, but we really haven't ever had other gods before us, and had those gods influence the laws, the decision, and the actions of the American people, right? So you get what I'm saying. They were there, kind of, but they always are in the background, where we felt like we're actually just giving them religious freedom, right? And that's not, I wouldn't take that away. Hi, I see you. Let's see. I see your last name is Stewart. I'm trying to see your first name, but that doesn't matter. But anyway, so we've never really had the influence, because we want to give religious freedom, which we should, but it hasn't been an influence where other gods are making laws, policies, influencing what's going on in Congress, what's going on in the local governments, what's going on in school boards even, and then making those laws and bringing in ideologies from other places. And now we have that happening in our country. America is in a spiritual battle right now with other gods. It looks like political, all right? It looks political. But the people that are being influenced by this are not being influenced by politics. They're being influenced by other gods and their ancestors, the gods, and bringing them. So we've never had it like that. We're in a spiritual battle that our forefathers didn't know these gods. These gods weren't here when our forefathers when our forefathers began to write up this nation and base it on the Christian values and beliefs and the things of that. They didn't have an influence here. And so our forefathers were actually using the religion of their forefathers and came here for religious freedom based on Christian values and the Bible and things like that. And Judean, as they say, the Jewish, Israel, and Christianity, the Bible. And so they were basing it on that, and they weren't facing anything else, and that's what they meant. They meant to have it that way. So now we have, in America, we have other gods coming in through other people, obviously, through other people, bringing other gods and influencing the decisions of America and the way we view freedom, commerce, dealing with the poor, dealing with the rich. All kinds of things are coming in, and you're realizing that it's like foreign to me the way it's being thought out, but it's not foreign to certain people who their forefathers didn't come here and didn't send them here with the kind of things that's happening. Now, we want religious freedom, and we understand that, but when people come to America, what the idea was and what used to happen was people would come from other countries and they might have other religious ideas, and that's all right. We're here for that too. But then they came and they assimilated into this government ways, our forefathers' ways. The laws were based on what our forefathers wrote up, Bill of Rights, the Constitution, and just integrity in believing in God. And there's a lot of historical evidence that they did believe in God, and they expected God to be involved in our country, and they expected God to bless this country, and they were trying to build it around those values. And so now we have people coming in that are not wanting to get in that. They're wanting to rearrange America, reform America under the ideology of other gods. Okay, do you have that? And it's affecting people because it's not political, it's spiritual, and these gods are influencing. That's what they do. Paul wrote about that. He said, and he basically said an idol isn't anything. That's why I sat in the lap of Buddha, I guess. But an idol isn't anything. But he said, but there's demons behind those idols. Hi, Gabe. There's demons behind those idols. So the power of that. So why? I mean, just think about it. Who in their right mind would worship a fish and wear a fish god hat, wear a hat that kind of looks like a fish, and worship that and bow down to that? It makes no sense. Or another animal, or like, it makes no sense. And that's why it doesn't make any sense, because those idols are nothing. But it's what's behind them is there's a power and there's an influence, and it makes people like, this looks ridiculous to us or to me, but to them it's important. To them it's religion. To them it's sacred. And so somehow they're getting a sacredness out of a statue, or sacredness out of some kind of an idol. And so these ideals of other gods now have come into our country. And so whether you like it or not all gods are the same. Have you ever heard people say, well, it doesn't matter what religion, there's only one God, just by a different name? Well, that's not true. God didn't say that. He didn't say, as long as you use my name, it's okay, right? No, they would get into, you can read it through the Bible, and they'd go into, the Israelites would go into other nations, and then God would get upset because they began to worship other gods. He didn't say, hey, they're my brothers, we all got the same last name, just our first names are different. He said they're other gods, and it upset him. And he would overlook everything. He would give them chance after chance, lead them, guide them, send prophets to them, forgive them, help them, bless them, discipline them out of love, and then come back and help them again, over and over and over through the centuries. This has been the way God has acted until they got other gods. And then he was upset. He didn't tolerate. You cannot have, I will not compete with other gods. And that was his concern. You'll go into the nations, I'll give you the land, and then you'll go in there, and then whatever power is behind these other gods, if you're weak, if you're worldly, if you're carnal, you can fall for it. You fall for the ideas of other gods. So what we have now in our country, we have other gods of other religions have come in and are replacing the God of our forefathers with ideas and ways of economics, as I said, money, how to deal with the poor, how to deal with the rich, how we're going to think, who we're against. And of course, you can tell that they've always said that, that our nation is Christian Judeo, meaning Jewish, Christian Judeo values, right? And then others come in and they hate the Jews. And I kind of turn my nose, I don't know what, snicker or whatever, that we have people who consider themselves Christians who hate Jews. Well, Jesus is a Jew. He was a Jew. He didn't convert and become a Christian. He practiced Judaism. Jesus is still Jewish. And he's the Jewish Messiah, and I believe too, so he's my Messiah. He's the Christian Messiah to those who believe, and he's still the Jewish Messiah, whether they haven't come to full faith and started to believe. Got it? So now we have another God by another name, and you'll hear that name. You'll hear it. You'll hear people do things and set off something or riot or bomb something, and then they yell the name of another God out. And so this is where we get to be concerned, is God will not have other gods. It upsets him. He won't tolerate it, and he is jealous for his people. And when I say that too, I think he's jealous that, in our carnality, we love Netflix, or we love our phone, and we have weak lifestyle. It's not a very strong Christianity. But even then, God, he's always understood stupidity. But to have other gods then dictating our policies of Americans and the laws, and then these people who are making new laws are anti-Jew, anti-Semitics, they hate Israel. They're making laws, trying to pass laws where we forget Israel, that we aren't aligned with Israel. We're not in treaties with Israel, and they want to be anti-Israel. Now that's another God. I mean, our God is not going to be anti-Israel because that's where Jesus grew up. So he's not going to be. It's a different God. If it's anti-Jew and anti-Christian, it's anti our God. But it is slick. It's slick. And so that's where we get ourselves in trouble when people who believe that they're Christians or say they believe in God and they maybe even go to church, believe that Jesus, died for their sins. They can believe all that. And then they turn against Israel or they turn against our country and become anti-American and anti-government and anti-politicians and anti-everything, hating everything that made America. And they won't then they're fighting laws that are going to preserve our nation and preserve who we have been. That's another God. And they're being influenced. And they may not even know it. But if they support lawmakers and politicians who believe in that God, then they're supporting another God. Got it? And that's where now we have to be very, very careful that we understand what's going on, that the American people and most of the American Christians have never faced these gods before. They faced the gods of pornography, or they faced the gods of tax evasion or whatever, other things that get in and make people do dumb things, okay? They face those, and they know they're wrong. Even if they do it, they know they're wrong. They don't know they're wrong about this. They don't realize other gods are coming into our country through people and passing laws with those gods, influencing them to support their gods and rearrange our nation to where Christians are nominal, hardly ever praying, and the others are going forward with their religion in a powerful way. Well, I'm going to tell you a story then, and then I'll end. So, Kathy, and you'll wonder, what does this story got to do with anything? So, Kathy and I were in Australia. We've been there many times. And if you go up the coast, you drive up to the Gold Coast. I think that's where we were going, or maybe we're coming back down. And you're going to go buy something that everybody there knows. It's called the Big Banana. It's a huge banana, bigger than this desk, that is yellow like a big banana. And it's man-made, and there it is right on the highway. People stop and take pictures, and everybody knows there's the Big Banana. Well, we went and we stopped by the Big Banana like everybody else. And not too far, then we drove away. Not too far away, I saw this sign that said Banana Farm or something like that up. It's a really steep hill, and it looked like, oh, you can go up. I said, I don't know if I've ever really been that much around banana trees. And I pictured myself, I'm going to go banana, and I'm going to get a real fresh banana off this tree. So we go, and we had rented like a tiny Toyota, 4-speed. You had to shift it and do the clutch, and it had this tiny engine in it, little tiny wheels, And we're going to go up this steep hill. We go and we go and we go, and we're going pretty good. And we get about 3/4 of the way up, and all of a sudden, it's kind of rocky and everything, and rough and grass and kind of a path and little tiny road. And the wheels start spinning. They're not, we're not making momentum now. And I don't know if we can make it to the top. And we're way up there now. I mean, up there. And so then the problem was, though, when I looked, you talk about politics, get this picture. When I looked to the left, it was a huge cliff. I mean, right there off the side. The road's hardly big enough for the car. That's kind of the way it is, a path. And I thought, I'm on the way to the banana farm. And I looked to the left, and there's this steep, steep cliff right down. And you look to the right, just right there. On the other, you could open the door, and you're there. A big drop, and it was more tree line, but it was like probably 300 feet to the bottom. But there were trees all the way going down. And there we are, we're going, and the car's weaving this way, trying to get up. And we think well, this is not a good situation. I can't get to the top without just spinning. I can't get where I want to go. And then the other is, if I go to the left, it's going to be bad. And if I go to the right, it's going to be bad. I'm stuck. I'm stuck on this hill. And what do? So we can't get up. Pretty soon we just spin, and we couldn't get up. And couldn't go to the left, couldn't go to the right. Well, what am I going to do? Well, what I did, I came up with this brilliant idea. You know what we're going to have to do, Kathy? we're going to have to roll this car all the way back down backwards. We're going to let it roll, and we'll just put it in neutral and just roll. And because the engine is like smoking now and stuff, the clutch is smoking, and we'll put it in neutral, and I'll just brake and brake and brake, and we'll just roll down. It was kind of a mountain. We'll just roll down this mountainside backwards, ease it down, ease it down, ease it down. And you know what? We did. And when we got to the bottom, we found safety. And that's what America needs to do. The American people, the churches, we need to stop all this thing about trying to please everybody and keep everybody happy, and especially in the churches, giving therapy just to cope. And we need to get back to the bottom of the hill where it's safe. And the bottom of the hill is back what our forefathers tried to do. Not perfectly, but tried to do. And all of a sudden we get a people who are going back to the basics of Christianity and the basics of God, right? And one of the things that God is he's honest, right? God never lies. He doesn't ever lie. He's never lied. Get down to honesty, because you can trust God in that. And get down to one of my favorite subjects is integrity. You know what integrity is? You keep your word. God has integrity. God is honest, and he keeps his word. He has integrity. We commit and say we love people, then we change our minds. We come, even in churches, we love the church. I love you. I'm going to support you. And then with no integrity, gone and doing something else or speaking bad or whatever. And you go like, what happened? I thought we had some integrity here. No integrity. And then honoring God, putting honor back in. That's basically, and respect and faith. Without faith, it's impossible to please God, right? And we can just, I guess, throw in trust. All these basics. Basically, we had to go down to the bottom of the mountain. Only at the bottom was it safe. We wanted to go to the top, but we couldn't get there with who we were and what we were trying to be, and we couldn't get there in the vehicle we were trying to get there in. So the vehicle of humanism and therapy and we're all victims, and it's going to be okay, and just hang on and try to keep going and love one another and you know, just love one another and love God, and we'll just go on. It's not working. We're stuck. We cannot get to the top of the hill for the United States of America. We're going to have the way we're going, and it's not good on the left, and it's not perfect on the right. We've got to realize this is a spiritual war that's going to take away the freedoms that we've had and create a nation like those other nations where they came from, which were failures, poverty, dictatorship, abuse, all these kinds of things. And that's the direction that there are people right here in America are trying to get our country to go. So what are we going to do about it? What are we going to do about it? We can get angry, we can join, we can quit. No, we can pray and get back to the basics of what it means to be a Christian, the character of God, all these things, honesty and integrity and honor and respect and faith, and start living it out. So now we empower the kingdom of God to stand up against the kingdom of these other gods. But nominal Christianity that just goes to church and wants comfortable, convenient religion cannot stand up to the gods who are now forcefully trying to advance into our country. That's my speech today. You say, well, I don't know if I agree with it. I don't know if I like it. It doesn't matter. God's going to get upset. God gets up. If we replace and have more and more other gods, it's going to upset God. And that's not going to be a good thing for our nation, because God then backs away. He starts withdrawing all the things that have made us strong and great and safe. So that's my speech today. I hope it's just a little bit of eye-opening of we can't let God get jealous. He can get angry with us for our stupidity, but we cannot have